Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is Monday, right? What are they saying? What's the line on social media? Blur's Day. It's Blur's Day. But this is a Blur's Day that we're here live at 10 a.m. So I guess that means that we know it's Monday. Regardless, it's July 6th. We're in day 5,362,491 of stay at home. That's an exaggeration. It's only been, a third of the year. So anyway, here we are. These little presentations on a weekly basis on Mondays at 10 a.m. Facebook Live for the greater community, and specifically the folks who were attending our Sachem Public Library public program in the days before COVID. Program is, of course, currently suspended, canceled, whichever word you want to use. The library is still closed to the public. They're in their four-phase reopening, as are many libraries on the Isle of Lynx here in the state of New York, in the country of United States. And phase 2 is that they're doing curbside pickup by appointment. Phase 3 will be a limited reopening of the library to the public at a date to be announced. And phase 4 will be the return of public programs in the library. Both phase 3 and phase 4 will have social distancing rules in place. Now, chances are, given the governor's current stand on recreational programs, that if that is his ban in reopening in-person training classes remains in effect when the library reaches phase 4, we won't be back, at that time. So anyway, so there you go. So we're here. In other words, the short story is we're going to be here for a while on Mondays at 10 a.m. So this week, and that's really it for announcements. I guess the other thing I should just mention is, we have no idea when the studio is going to reopen to in live classes, in-person classes at this time either. We had been hoping, we'd been aiming for phase 4 of New York State Forward, but when the governor pulled gyms and recreational facilities out of phase 4, that went away. So we were looking at this Thursday, but no longer. Hi, Linda. Good morning. So this week, in this segment, we're going to spend some time with a little warm-up, Tai Chi Qigong warm-up for some relative, in the program. They were recently introduced to this particular posture, this exercise from the stationary sets of Tai Chi Qigong. Its eagle attacks its prey. So we're going to warm up with that, and then we're going to, I guess, keep a bird theme. Because we're going to explore a little bit of the diversity in approaches to Tai Chi by exploring the transition in the 24 posture form from parting the wild horse's mane into white crane spreads its wings. Now, I'm sure there are more versions than what I'm going to present this morning. I know of 3, so that's what I'm going to do. We'll do our warm-up. We'll present the 2 postures. We'll talk about some of the details about moving in between the 2 postures, and then introduce you to these 3 versions. Water Tiger School's version, and then the other 2 versions with which we are familiar. So I hope that sounds fun. I hope it sounds interesting. We speak a lot on our Facebook page, and I talk a lot in our classes about the strength that diversity brings the arts. Some people are of the mind that diversity creates a weakness. It dilutes the strength of Tai Chi. I think it strengthens it. I think it strengthens the art of Tai Chi. If for another reason, each lineage has their approach for their reasons. And as you explore that diversity, you may find your reason challenged. And that may be good in that you have a chance to see how your approach stands up against others. So you can strengthen your position, or you may find, I always wondered why it felt like that it didn't quite feel right, or, it just didn't connect with me. But now that I have this other choice, let's see if I can incorporate that into what it is that I do. So again, I think diversity is a strength. But anyway, enough of the chat. We'll get going. So, I mean, another drink, because, you know, it's Monday, I'm thirsty. Well, that means it's a day of the week. Do a little shake. To get started, you can probably catch my blue lines. They're at my shoulder width, more or less. So, by the by, shoulder width determined by where the drop of the shoulder is. Left and right should split the heel on that side in half. That's very, very important for everything that we do. Post on the Water Tiger, you know, above, well, I guess it would be below this video now, was about 4 stances, 4 stance. Shoulder width is shoulder width as well. We didn't post that particular thought. Unless your shoulders change their widths, your feet are always going to be the same distance apart when you're shoulder wide. So, eagle attacks its prey. It's an undulation move. So, it is related. Well, of course, they're all related because it's Tai Chi Qigong. But you may remember we've done as a warm-up at different times, large python or big python softens its body, so you have this undulation. We've also, as a warm-up, and all the way back to our live Facebook Live session on the original date for World Tai Chi Day, when we did this set, I think we included big python, and we also included large bear swimming in water, where the undulation extends the arms out, and then the undulation pulls them back, as if, you know, a bear could do a breaststroke. So what eagle attacks its prey is sort of a reverse of that movement. So the undulation forward arcs the arms up over the top. Now, generally, traditionally, this is presented, and the hands always stay in our delicate lady hands, our beautiful lady hands. So we just have, you know, that nice cup of the hand. At that very apex of the arc, I seek to have I like the feeling, I like the activation. A little activation in the talons of the eagle. I'm not making eagle claws, right? Or actually, eagle claws are more like this. But I'm just sort of just really accenting the points of the 10 of the 2. Right at the arc, right at the apex of that arc. So when I reach the apex of my arc, I have that little activation in that moment, and then my hands, my claws relax again. So every time I hit that apex to transition into pulling the hands in, I have that little activation in the fingertips. Just a little bit extra intent and a little bit extra chi activation in the hands. I think it feels really good. My head hasn't exploded yet, so I don't bother. I'm not worried. Well, I don't worry about anything, but we shouldn't worry about anything, let me put it that way. I think it's fine to do the non-traditional approach, but if you just want to keep the delicate lady hands, that's okay. So another little shake. We'll talk about a breath. Remember, it is Tai Chi Qigong, so the breath should be in the movement, and the movement in the breath. We're going to breathe into the preparatory position of floating the hands. My palms are up, my fingertips are sort of angled toward my center line. And that, after that inhalation, we'll move into the exhalation in the first arc. Oh, another word about the arc, right? If you have a shoulder impingement, you know, you don't have to arc so far up and over, right? If that creates a, ow, then come to your prey more horizontally and turn down. And that's fine. Regardless of your range of motion and shoulder impingement or not, you don't want to go back too far. You see, I don't want to go back to that point where I'm compressing my back and extending my chest. I want to pull back to a point where I can still keep a little bit of my sunken chest and my rounded back as I arc up over the top. So I think I've hit all the points. I'll do this, I don't know, about 6 times because we had a lot to cover this morning. Another little shake. Nice relaxing breath. Probably find an exhalation because it would be good to bring the hands up on an inhalation. So you start that first undulation and then exhale up and over and let the head and the neck be part of this. And then inhale, ideally back. but again, breathe when you have to, but the breath is in the movement and the movement in the breath. So ideally an exhalation up over the top and an inhalation in. And exhalation. This is 3, so I think we're going to go beyond 6. We'll see. I'm going to turn sideways for a moment. So see the undulation, the wave back, into the wave forward. 3. 4, nice, soft, relaxed breath. 5. What was that 4? I think that was 5. 6, and turn face you again. 7. Just 2 more. 8. Nice full body undulation. 9. And we come in this time, just recognizing we're not really going around again. The undulation forward turns the palms down. And with that little extra activation in the fingertips, my hands are really, really buzzing. I just love that feeling. I hope you do too. And then the close, right? So hands are going to float up away from the body, like on top of a beach ball filled with healing. Vertical alignment, crown point of the head, base of the pelvic bowl. Ball of the right foot. Left foot comes in. Knee pop is optional. And a little settling brings the hands back into the belly. So there you go. Little eagle attacks its prey. Caw! Now, the 2 postures that we're going to do, and of course, this is another point where diversity comes into play. Different people will have different ends of postures for parting the wild horse's mane, and for white crane spreads its wings. So parting the wild horse's mane for us, for water tiger, in our lineage, we are shoulder wide. Shoulder wide is determined by where the heels are. We are in 4 stance, forward moving stance. And our 4 stance, the heels determine shoulder width. The back foot's going to be at around a 45-degree angle. So again, toes right straight forward on the blue line, facing the camera. One side of the angle. If I put my toes directly out to the wall, perpendicular to the wall that I'm facing, perpendicular to the camera, that's a 90-degree angle. So my toes should be somewhere around halfway in between. Yes, ideally 45. Some people would say it has to be a 45. We're all different. We have different flexibilities. You know, my left ankle, by now you all know, if you've been in, you know, in any of the classes, you know, in person or online for the last 4 months, you know that I have some metal in my left ankle, and it can't always be at the 45. So I have to adjust. Right? So that one's at the 45. And notice I made all those changes by turning on my heel, not turning on the ball of my foot, because now I'm not shoulder wide. I turned on the ball of the foot, kicked the heel in. Yes, I'm still at a 45-degree angle, but my ball of my foot is at where my heel should be, so I'm not shoulder wide. The other foot stays on its line, stays at shoulder width, and comes a little bit closer to the camera. My hips are square. So that means more weight forward, then back. Hips, shoulders, right outside to side. So that's to the left of my camera. This is right straight out to the right of my camera. Chest is sunk, back is rounded. About 70% of the weight here. Back heel down and into the earth. And the outside of my foot is also down and into the earth. I'm not rolling to the inside of my foot. So in our parting the wild horse's mane, to get into white crane, you only need to know the left parting the wild horse's mane. That may change. That's going to change next week, by the way. Little center of the palm, right back to the center of your chest. So I'm smacking the tiger sort of at its right front knee. He doesn't like it, or she, I'm not sure. But notice, elbow slightly down. I'm not in too close. I'm not out too far. And the second hand is sort of dribbling a basketball here. So I'm going to turn sideways this way so you can see it's in the front plane of the body. It's not in the plane of the body. I'm not pulling it back into the plane. It's just setting and floating here. And if you're in the right position, if you're not in too close, out too far, if you're not cramping the arm up or forcing it down or pulling it back, everything should be relaxed and sort of settling into place. So that's parting wild horse's mane for water tiger school, or shearing horse's mane, or wild horse shears mane, or parting horse's mane, or horse parts mane. All sorts of different names out there. But that's that posture. White crane is, the way it's going to be, it's a single leg, it's a false stance, or empty leg stance. Right foot's going to be at a 45 around, right? You don't want to get those toes too far out, or what follows in white crane doesn't really work very well. Left foot, just the ball of the foot, no real weight on it. It's just resting on the earth. Now, one of the differences, some people will say, you know, a true crane stance is you are shoulder wide. So they have this opening here in their white crane. I understand that. I kind of like the way it looks, but I don't like this openness here. So I'm moving in the direction of what some people would call a cat stance, which is sort of really closing off the groin. Generally, that foot falls to the place where if I were to bring my heel back, the heels are sort of close to being in alignment, but I don't really prescribe directly. A little bit of width, not bad, right? I don't really suggest a lot of width, and this is just too tight for what comes next. So you have to find that right place for you in your flexibility. And notice too, the knee is open. If you need a little bit of weight forward, if you need like 98.2 or 95.5 just to keep from falling over, especially since I'm standing here for a while, that's fine. Right, so that's the lower body. The upper body, with the weight on the right foot, right hand is open. Palm forward. Notice shoulder is dropped. There's a nice bow in the arm. And the left hand, palm is back, open, relaxed hands, and again, rounded. So that's our white crane. Water Tiger School's white crane. So we have parting wild horse's mane, and then we have a process to get to that position that is white crane. Process involves specific set of transitions. So you'll also need to know a ball about the size of your torso. So the lower hand, weight's going to be on the left foot when we form the ball. So the left hand's going to be the top of the ball, the right hand's going to be the bottom. And actually, for the purposes of this exercise, those left toes are going to be forward at this point. Going to be twisted a little bit into the left side. Back foot's going to be in. So my back foot is right at that point at the heel, where if I drop my back foot, it is going once again to be at the 45. And right at the heel of my front foot. So the heel of my left foot kind of comes into the center of the instep of that foot. So I'm holding the ball. What I'm going to do is drop that back heel without pivoting on the ball of the foot. I'm going to come into a position we call high press. So the right hand that was at the bottom of the ball comes up. Right in the crook of the wrist is the knife edge of my right hand. Now, if you have some wrist flexibility issues, you might have to bring the hand up, but ideally you have the knife edge of the hand. And it's called high press, not because of a height, but because of an angle. I'm not going out like this, I'm angled slightly up. It's like I'm coming up underneath somebody's chin. And that process gets us to the point where the hands can come down, do a double brush of the knee, and we turn forward into our white crane. So that's a long process, I know, but it really helps to solidify our Chan-Si, our silk reeling, our whole body movements, and what we usually refer to at Water Tiger School as timing, in that different parts of the body move at different speeds and still get to the ends of their movements or the beginnings of their movements at the same time. So the way that sequence plays out at Water Tiger School's lineage, we finished, there are 3 parting wild horses manes in our 24 posture form, the short form. Boom, young style, medium frame, by the way. And from here, You know, when we initially teach this, we sort of say the weight drops into the left leg, but it's a twist. It's a Chan-Si moment, silk reeling, twisting, curving moment. I'm just going to see if that's a hello or if somebody's having an issue. Oh, thank you. Hi, Nancy. Boom. We're twisting into that forming the ball process. The right foot comes in. Right at that 45, you're on the ball of the foot. You uncurl the twist, dropping the heel and coming up into high press. And from high press, the hands drop down. And sort of the image here, hidden application, taking somebody by the shoulders and driving them down as you drive your knee up. Doesn't have to be that dramatic. It's just that idea, the hands and the knee meet. Turning forward, squaring the hips. Careful of that back knee, right? Because that foot's at the 45. I'm turning forward. I don't want to turn the knee forward. I want to keep the knee aimed the same direction as that foot. So, boom. And here's another timing moment. That the 3 points, the ball of the foot and the 2 hands, all 3, tripod moment, all hit their extension at the same time. And that's Water Tiger School's approach to moving from the third parting one. Don't forget your little casual closing. Don't just stop. Right? We want to let the body, the mind, and the chi know, hey, we're done with that little sequence. We're going to talk about something or move on to something else or repeat what we just did. So you want that little casual closing. So anyway, you have the tripod moment, but it comes in at other times too, right? Because I'm bringing in that back leg, I'm turning and forming the ball all at the same time, and they all reach the apex of their movement. There's not a stop and a hold at any part of the body. The foot gets there, you immediately explode in slow motion into high press. As soon as everything finds that end, it becomes the double knee, double hand and knee into white crane. So that's our sequence for Water Tiger School. Parting the wild horse's mane, twisting, twisting, twisting and filling the foot, bringing the back foot in. It's at the 45. Turning, unfoiling, not twisting on the ball of the right foot, just dropping the heel, high press. Double brush of the knee. Oops, losing my balance a little bit. Boom. And white crane. We're going to do that one more time. We like it for its complication, right? And one of the things that we learn in Tai Chi as it continues, even with some of the shorter forms than this, is that the arts, the form, presents you a way of doing things, shall we say, and then changes it. So this is one of our first changes because we open, we repeat a posture 3 times. And then there's this sequence of movements that, 1, aren't exactly like the other movements, and 2, are only done once within the form. So we establish this is the way you get from one side to the other in 3 steps, and then we change the way you settle the weight into the left foot, and we don't repeat it. So plus all that play with timing, getting everything there at the right time, twisting, bringing the back foot in, everything's in place, unraveling that twist, turning up, settling in, and boom. And that's the way Water Tiger School does it. Now, the other thing that changes is that every other time in parting the wild horse's mane, to get to the other side, we rock back, we turn out. That becomes important in our second way of getting into white crane. Right? That you're in parting the wild horse's mane, and instead of simply dropping the weight into that foot, you rock back, the hands open up, you pivot, and the hands pivot, and you come up and you're forming the ball, just like what we did, only now the foot's out at the 45. You form the ball, you step as the ball is formed to the 45, not into a four stance position and toes forward, but to the 45. You fill the right foot, the hands pass one another, not unlike what they do in white crane. As they extend, you turn out of that movement into that back foot, and you're in your white crane. Same white crane, weights on the right foot, left foot, just the ball of the foot's resting. Now notice I did when I finished our way, I was on the other blue line. Here, I'm on the right blue line. Right is in the right side, not right is in the correct blue line. I'm on the correct blue line for this way of getting into it. So, still a lot going on. Still parting the wild horses main 3, because in the standard, basic standard 24 posture form, I'm not going to say that it's standardized. A lot of people still use that word in its title. But everybody does this differently, as I'm showing you. So you can't really say it's standardized if everybody does it differently. Well, you could. I just don't believe you should. It's okay if you do. No bad. You know, because it was originally standardized 24 posture, Young style, short form. So again, I rock back. So when I rock back, release the ball of the foot because I want to be able to pivot on that heel. So boom, rock back, pivot into forming the ball a little bit. As I'm bringing, the back heel can come up off the ground when it has to. As the ball is formed, you want that right foot at that 45 at about shoulder width. Fingertips sort of pass one another. As you get to a certain point, you'll feel it as the hands get to a certain point. To extend the leg and finish the extension on the hands to keep the movement alive, you have to turn forward and boom. Now, there is another variation within this variation, which is there's no rock back. You do a twist step, step, and up. But it's really the same movement, so I'm not going to challenge you with the twist step. We don't do that because of the challenges to people's knees, but it can be done. But again, from that third parting the wild horses main. Whoops, sorry, I was going to my way again. I do it my way. Never mind. You don't want to hear me sing. Rock back, ball of the foot comes up off the ground. Pivot, left toes out to around the 45. Begin forming the ball. So as you pivot from the rock back, the hands just release from the posture. The pivot, the hands and the arms just pivot a little bit. They start forming the ball. You don't want the ball to be formed until that foot is in place. Again, there's a point at about here where it's time to start turning forward so the 3 points, the tripod, can be formed. I'm going to do something different. I've been closing forward. I'm going to close back. One more time in the second variation. We're going to get to the third variation, and you're probably all going to say, well, why don't we just do it that way? That gives you a hint as to how uncomplicated the last version is. I do like the second one for the fact that it maintains the rhythm of the previous, but that's also why I don't like it, because again, I like stuff when it changes, because it challenges us. It reminds us that Tai Chi adapts to different situations, so you don't always move the same way every single time you're doing something. So again, that last parting wild horses main, little bounce, little pivot, hands pivot, come up, forming the ball, step, but with the toes out toward the 45. Fingertips pass, knee starts coming in, and about halfway through the journey, you turn forward to settle in to that end of posture. And there you go. 2. Again, and remember the twist step variation. What that is, it's the forward movement. Instead of rocking back and turning out, you do a twist step into that moment and a step in. But that's tricky on people's knees, as I said. Third way. to get from Parting Wild Horses Mane to White Crane. If you've ever participated in one of our public classes, we do what we refer to as the Taste of the 24 every once in a while in our public classes, where we do the first section of the 24 in 4 movements. Oops, that was 3, in 4 movements. And when we do that, we use this approach to getting from Parting the Wild Horses Mane 3 into White Crane. Same ends of postures of both. Still going to be here, and it's still going to be the White Crane. So here it is. You finish your last Parting the Wild Horses Mane. You rock back, sort of the same thing. When I'm halfway into my extension, my leg is about halfway in, my arms are about halfway extended, I'm turned into the back foot, I turn forwards and move everything into place for White Crane. See, I told you you'd wish that we would do it this way. Because that's all it is. I'm not going to close, because all I'm going to do now is step into Parting Wild Horses Mane again. Is start turning back into the back foot. The hands, the arms start to compress. The leg starts to compress. About halfway into, as you feel their compression is there, and the leg is brought in, and you're turning into the back leg, you have to turn forward again. Boom. To finish that posture. It's not unlike the feeling, now I'm going to close because I'm going to talk about something. It's not unlike the feeling that we get in Water Tiger School's approach to ending Repulse the Monkey and moving into Grass Sparrow's Tail, because that last Repulse the Monkey is finished. We have to turn forward to release the previous posture and then turn back to form the ready position for Grass Sparrow's Tail. Different, but similar. By the way, I know that I do point out similarities a lot, but what we really want to do is not find how this is like that, because then that tends to make us want to make it like the thing we're thinking of. And doing that changes the way in which the posture is manifested. What we want to do is embrace the difference, the uniqueness of the movement, not to try to fit it into some cookie cutter, this is what we did with this other thing, so that's what we should do now. To a certain extent, yes, because the principles are always the same. But find each movement's uniqueness instead of how it is like other things. So we have that last Parting Wild Horses Mane, and from that bounce and that release, we compress in, turning back, and then turn forward. And so from Parting the Wild Horses Mane, we turn back, and we turn forward. So from Parting the Wild Horses Mane, we turn back, and we turn forward. So those are the 3.5 different versions that we know at Water Tiger School to get from Parting Wild Horses Mane to White Crane. I'm sure, well, yeah, I would say I'm sure, there are other methods of doing so. And just because there are different ways of doing things doesn't make my way right and their way wrong, or their way right and my way wrong. We have our reasons for that. So Parting Wild Horses Mane, from the Water Tiger School perspective, there's no bounce back. It's like every other time we bounce back, like we do in version 2, right? But that rebound from that posture, the bounce sort of comes back in the direction from whence it came. In this version, in the third posture, it's like there's you accent the spin on the ball, and that spins the ball down and back to the left, bringing in that right foot, pivoting, high press, double brush of the knee, and White Crane. That's version 1. Version 2, the step, you have a rock back, turn out, weighted or unweighted if you do the twist step version, forming the ball, stepping to the 45, coming up, and about halfway through that movement, you turn forward to finish your extension. That's version 2. Version 3 is you finish your Parting Wild Horses Main 3. You compress in and back and to the right, and about halfway into that compression before you get too tight, you turn forward. I'm going to do that one more time because I stopped and talked about things. Boom, becomes in, becomes out. And each time, notice, if I'm on my game, the 3 points all hit at the same time. Now, a little practice like this can make you put a stop in that moment, or maybe you're thinking, well, you know, Lawrence is saying all 3 points have to hit at the same time, and when he says that, he sort of does a little ta-da. I'm doing the ta-da to sort of point out that they're all getting there at the same time as a teaching tool. When you play the form, they all get there and it becomes the next thing. If you do the ta-da, that ain't it, kids. That's not the Tai Chi. That's not the end of posture in the Tai Chi play. It gets there and it bounces into that next thing, whatever that next thing is. So there are your 3 versions. You know, play with them. You can find ways each of them can help explore whichever one it is that you use. And perhaps for those who have a different approach to that particular transition, you know, you can compare what it is that you do to what others do. You know, you may find, and it's like, well, you know, I'm still working with my instructor, so I have to do it the way that my instructor does it. It's perfectly understandable. But, you know, maybe that brings a conversation with your instructor as to, you know, why they do it the way that they do it. Be careful with that. But, you know, you might ask, you know, you were introduced to this other version. Why do we do it the way that we do it? And there are good reasons for each of those versions I just showed you. And for every other version, there's a reason that it's done that way. So don't discount that just because there are differences. Now, I mentioned at the head of this, you know, as we were getting into it, that this sort of sets the ground for next week. I'm going to do a series. I actually have 4 weeks. The next 4 weeks we have all planned in queue. So today we did the 3 variations of getting from horse's mane to white crane. Next week we're going to take the Water Tiger School version and drill into how you can make that a walking exercise and explore 2 things. Not only practicing that moment, but practicing that moment to both sides. So it goes all the way back to one of our earlier live sessions, and Variety is the Spice sequence, where we talked about playing to the opposite side, or in Water Tiger School's lineage, our regular way is playing to the left. That's how we refer to it. And we addressed how to play to the right. Not sure if it was a Sachem program, Sachem live session, or West Babylon. So next week we're going to present that. 3 weeks out, if we stay on schedule, we're going to show a couple of variations of getting from brush D3 into playing the pei pa, or playing the lute, or playing the guitar. And then 4 weeks out, we're going to turn that into a side-to-side walking exercise. If we follow the plan. That's the plan right now. As you know, plans may change. As I mentioned at the head of this, we had planned on reopening the studio this Thursday, and now that is not going to happen. So there you are. We've been here every Monday since March 23rd, except for Memorial Day. And if we have another Monday holiday while we're still doing this, we will skip that one as well. All things being equal, we should be here without issue. So there's that. The YouTube channel is still there. We're still posting stuff, although at this point, the last couple of weeks, all we've done is uploaded one of these early sessions, and we're still doing that on a weekly basis. And there hasn't been any original content since, I think, 2 weeks ago. We do have something in queue, depending upon how this week unfolds, with Water Tiger School admin and that sort of thing, and with all the stuff that we have on the plate. Because, you know, in a way, it's like people talk about all the time when they tell me that they've retired. It's like, I don't know how I had time for work now that I'm retired, because I'm just busy all the time. It's like now that I'm not going anywhere, there's no commutes. You know, the Monday classes at Sachem are of course suspended. I've had at least one short-term program cancel at this point. I'm expecting another one to drop off the schedule. I'm just waiting to hear back from the library, the programming librarian at that particular venue. But I'm assuming since it's supposed to start in 3 weeks, that it ain't going to happen. And West Babylon is remote, so I still don't have to drive to West Babylon, but we have a remote class on Tuesday mornings there. I'm going to have to put on my glasses to read Steve's comments. Good morning, Steve. Hey, thanks. More than welcome to. I steal a lot, as you can see, by using other stuff. As a matter of fact, this kind of play has changed the way that I do things in my own forms. Specifically, for the most part, the long form, but there have been other changes as I've seen people play things like the 24 and that sort of thing as well. But I still remember a time many moons ago, and I was in correspondence with an Australian instructor, Choi, and some of you may know him if you're established, you know, if you've been on Long Island doing Tai Chi for a while, because Mr. Choi's come out here a few times. But this was actually still when I was still back in Des Moines, Iowa. And Mr. Choi had shortened the long form on his own. He'd created his own version, and he sent me a copy of the video because he wanted feedback. And he did a transition differently out of the first single whip in the traditional long form into shoulder strike and lift hands and lean than what I had initially been taught. And it never quite, I couldn't connect with it. I won't say that it didn't feel right, but I couldn't connect with it. And I saw Mr. Choi's version and I went, oh, that's it. So seeing his version helped me adjust mine. And another point came with, and again, if you're on Long Island, you probably know, and if you've ever participated in our World Tai Chi Day events, you have met Spencer G. Spencer did a number of years ago, about 3 locations back in our studio location, did a series of Tai Chi as a martial art seminars. And he presented a different version of Carry Tiger to Mountain than I had done before. Now, I liked my way. It worked fine. But it also felt a lot like Brush Knee, Step and Strike. And his version still sort of feels like Brush Knee, Step and Strike, but it has a unique ending. So it challenges that, that perception of doing something sort of like other things, but with changes. So exploring our diversity can help us, can strengthen our perspective, and help us along on our journey. So there you go. I think I've rambled on long enough this morning. So hope you had fun. Hope you learned something. Obviously Steve did, because he's stealing the use of the painter's tape. And by the way, painter's tape. For years, I used masking tape. It leaves residue. The painter's tape doesn't, although it doesn't work, you know, the different tapes don't always work well on all substances. But we're always telling people, you know, if you have a pattern on your floor that you can count boards, you know, if you have a hardwood floor that the boards are all the same width, you know, you establish your shoulder width, you establish your shoulder width, and then count the boards between your feet. You know, if you have a pattern carpet, you know, say it's geometric shapes, say there are squares, so you count the squares. You know, on a tile floor, sometimes tiles are, you know, it's like a tile and a half or 2.5 tiles or something like that. You have to divide it up, and you might have to do that with geometric shapes. But tape, you can always set it down yourself, and you can create your little railroad tracks. There's also the Arthur Murray School of Tai Chi Chuan, at least that's what I refer to it. You know, you can put actual footprints on the floor. So anyway, there you go. I really am going to shut up now and call an end to this week. So again, next week we're going to turn what we just did, the first version, into a side-to-side walking exercise. We'll see how that goes. So be well, stay safe. Please stay home if you can. You might notice, you know, it's about time to get the beard trimmer out again and cut this down. It's getting a little, you know, wild for me. And yes, I could probably find a barbershop that's open now on Long Island, but, you know, at this point, why risk it? And please, half of NPR this morning was them talking about masks and how important masks are to keep the spread of COVID-19 down, to keep the curve flat if you're in New York State or one of the clearer states, and to drop the curve in places, and there are a lot of them, where the curve is still going up. So take care, be safe, wear a mask, stay at home, and we'll talk to you next time.